Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to get a nice high contrast edge with Fiebing's dye products. We're going to use black for this demonstration because that's about as high contrast as you can get. The first thing we did is I filled a paint marker with some of the black dye. I'm using the Pro dye, but you can use any one of your choosing. The next thing is we're going to prepare our leather edge. Now it's important to note that this works on any leather that you can dye. We have a nice brown leather here. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to use a natural veg tan to get the highest contrast possible. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sand my edge a little bit so we know it's flat. I've already trimmed this edge and I've already glued these pieces together. After I have a nice sharp edge, I'm going to take my edge beveler and I'm going to bevel an edge. Now this is a little bit different than how you would normally do it because when you're painting an edge, you usually want a nice flat edge. But with this technique, you'll be able to actually dye a nice rounded edge, so it's very comfortable, but it also looks really cool. Once we've beveled this edge, I'm going to go in and sand a little bit more with a lighter grit sandpaper. And this will just kind of smooth things out and make my edge nice and rounded. Now it's ready to do our dyeing. Now we're going to go in to dye our edge, and the key to this really is the dye pen that we're using. We're going to use the 8mm flat tip, but you can use whichever one that you like. I have this filled again with the black Fiebing's Pro dye. I'm going to go in and I'm simply going to dye my edge, and because of that flat tip, we're going to get a nice cutoff between where we beveled and sanded and where the grain of the leather starts. Now on these dye pens, if you're doing a job like this that you need to be really accurate, it might help to bring in a scrap piece of leather once the dye pen the tip has gotten a little dry, and re-wet it this way instead of pushing down on the edge, because once we flip it, we don't want to push down and get dye on any place that we didn't mean to. Once we have our edge fully dyed, we're ready to burnish and we're almost done. Once our dye has dried on our edge, we're going to go in with some Tokonol to finish up. Now this is going to do two things. First thing it's going to do is going to prevent the dye on this edge from ever leaking. Now that's rare, but sometimes if the piece were to get wet and is in someone's pocket, the dye might stain something else. So I'm going to put a coat on, not too thick. Then I'm going to use my leather slicker and I'm going to slick down this edge. A little tip when you're doing a high contrasting dyed edge like this, if you actually flip the slicker over and use the flat part, that'll help you get an even further crisp edge along the side where you have your dye meeting up with your light colored leather. And everyone's got their favorite way to finish an edge, so you just go through if you want to do another coat of Tokonol, if you want to do a coat of wax at the end. That's pretty much all you have to do to get a nice dyed edge that is high contrast and does not go over the boundary that you want it to.